stay with us as we stay on this topic. Israeli protesters gathered outside the Tel Aviv Expo Center as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attended an event on local governance. They called for an end to the war in Gaza and for Netanyahu to step down, while also expressing support for Attorney General Baharav-Miara, who has clashed with the government over legal issues and faces calls for dismissal. The protests come amid growing fatigue over the war in Gaza. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Professor Rohan Gunaratna. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, what does the growing wave of domestic protests calling for an end to the Gaza war, as well as Netanyahu's resignation, reveal about the Israeli government's failure to manage both the military conflict and public morale within the country?
There is a surge of opposition within Israel against Netanyahu. But one must consider two aspects. One is that even if there are protests, it is important for Hamas to be disarmed, to make sure they surrender and release the hostages. Otherwise, it will be a very temporary gain. Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the other terrorist groups will attack Israel again. So I think the protesters themselves need to be educated that these protests are not going to prevent Israel from securing its interests and its national security. But certainly this education engagement is imperative. Otherwise, it will become increasingly difficult for IDF to maintain, the Israeli Defense Forces to maintain the momentum of operations, which should continue until their own nationals are released or though their own nationals are rescued. So at this point, I believe that there needs to be greater effort on the part of the international community to better understand that this devastating war in Gaza is caused by a very brutal terrorist attack in 2023, October 7th and 8th.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we move on to our next news.